Hey everybody, for this assignment, I'm going to be looking at The Watchmen. I'd seen the movie, I'd never read the graphic novel. It was published by DC Comics from 1986 to 1987. It was released in a 12-part series. There's 12 chapters, so roughly a chapter a month. 395 pages, written by Alan Moore, who also did V for Vendetta and From Hell. All three of these were turned into major motion pictures. Dave Gibbons was the illustrator, and John Higgins was the colorist. So, is this a graphic novel? Yes, it is. Even though it was released in sections, you could not read this, like one chapter of this, and know really what was going on. You have to read it like a novel all the way through, or you don't really get the whole experience. You'd be lost in the sauce. So, yeah, this is a graphic novel, and a good one, in my opinion. 3-act structure, yep. There are definitely 3 acts. Chapter 3, Chapter 9, and then the end of Chapter 12. This book starts off with the comedian, a character, whether you're familiar or not. It was kind of like, he used to be a mass vigilante, Batman type guy, but not a very nice one. Gets killed. It's a mystery. It sends off this former co-worker of his in the vigilante field, Rorschach, who's driven to find out what's going on. And this in turn sets off a chain of events that puts a Batman type character named Night Owl back into play, Dr. Manhattan, who's like this cosmic being, and his girlfriend, who starting to not like him, named the Silver Spectre, back into play, and Osmondius, who ends up being the bad guy. Just spoiler alert. It puts everybody back into play. So, but you don't know really what's going on. You have no idea really till the end. But by the end of the first chapter, the third chapter, a major change happens in that Dr. Manhattan, who'd been working for the United States government, because he was this cosmic being, has been keeping all of their forces across the world in check. He won in this alternate reality. He had won Vietnam for our country, and it became the 51st state, and the Russians are terrified of him, so America's kind of ruling the roost, and they really want to make him happy. He flips out a little bit because the Silver Spectre leaves him. He gets accused of causing cancer with all these people he's met over the years, because in his younger days he was a scientist, and then when he became this cosmic being, he's been working with all these people, and all of a sudden they're all getting cancer, at the last minute, and he wigs out and goes to Mars, which that's what I would do. But he's out of play, so all of a sudden the Soviets are back in play, and this could, at this time when this was written, it was written in probably '85, but it came out in '86, '87. That there was a big concern, the Soviets in World War III. And so all of a sudden things get real. So I thought that was a great. It was a great act break. It was very heavy. Yeah. So in between, he's off on Mars, building some sort of clock. Rorschach's still trying to find out who's killing his ex-coworkers. Night Owl's back in play. He's having feelings for the Silver Spectre. Everyone's back in play, and there's a lot of action, and it's a lot of fun. At one point, Rorschach ends up in prison, so he's stuck with all these people he put behind bars. It's very action packed, and you get a lot of backstory about all the characters in that time. So you become very emotionally invested in the whole book, which I thought was pretty neat. And then, like I said, from between 9 and 12, whole thing gets wrapped up like right on the mark. Boom. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Story over. So yeah, strong 3-act structure in Watchmen. Whose story is it? This is the second time I've had to record this because I went off on a tangent about this. This is just a theory. I think this is mankind's story. If you read it, it's really dark, and it's all about how we're driving ourselves to madness and just like our own destruction, which was a pervasive feeling at that time because of the Cold War, then what happened with Vietnam, and everything that was supposed to be great in the 60s and didn't work out, and then the decadence of the 80s, people were having some really, a lot of inner conversations. So, whose story? I think this is Mankind's story, and that was the message. It's driven by Rorschach a lot because he's the investigator. He's the one asking the questions, so you're kind of along with him. Ozymandias was the architect. He was the bad guy the whole time. You find that out in the end. So the characters all played a part, but once again, this was Mankind's story, which I thought was brilliant. Solid story arc? Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, it starts off with the death of the comedian, and you think that could be a thing, and Rorschach has this theory about there's somebody out there whacking, ex superheroes, so it really throws you through a loop, but you see a lot of weird things going on, and you're trying to figure out why things are going bad so fast, but it really doesn't become clear to the end that this is really what's happening. And while not every character has a strong story arc, the story has a very strong arc, and they did that really well. The effective transitions. Absolutely. You could flip to any page, and if you just look where it begins and look where it ends, based on the artwork and where everyone's looking and how the page set up and the captions, you'd want to flip to the next page. And I find that consistent throughout this entire graphic novel. It very well done. Okay, so as far as Scott McCloud goes, and his transition theory, or his insistence on this transition works, whatever. I found everything he was talking about, actually. So, panel to panel is Ozymandias at the comedian's funeral. Panel to panel. He's just slightly bigger. And that's what that looks like. Okay, let's see. Action to action. This is a shot of Rorschach interrogating a character called Malik that used to be a big deal when they were younger, and he's just an old guy dying of cancer with pointy ears. But he knows a couple things. But you see it feet to frightening to, actually to start up here. It's fighting. Yeah, I found that the most with Rorschach scenes. That was action to action. Subject to subject. So this is a flashback of the comedian getting killed. Rorschach doesn't know it, but he's hearing the story and piecing everything together. So you got the comedian about to get thrown out a window here, and Rorschach still interrogating Malik there. But yeah, so there's that. All right, scene to scene. Okay. There's a ton of scene to scene with Dr. Manhattan because he's traveling around space and time, and he's thinking back over. He could think simultaneously throughout seconds in time at the same time. So this is father throwing out watch gears that he was putting together as a kid to, I think it's 40 years later, roughly. He's sitting on Mars watching a meteor shower. So it's a huge transition. Really well done. As far as aspect to aspect goes and non sequitur, I couldn't find any of those in here. And maybe I missed them, but I couldn't find them. Okay, so Okay, directional flow. Yeah, I could actually flip to any page on this, and you'd find that these are kids at Halloween. You immediately want to find out what's going on there because they look creepy. Or if you look at here, this character, which is Bernard, talking to somebody else that's walking away from him, you have your eye is drawn this way, and that is consistent throughout this. So that's another random page I went to. Big shot. You want to find out what happens next. The Artie is what that flying machine is called from Archie, Archimedes, Greek mythology. So you find the same thing. Well, would I recommend this? Absolutely, especially to you guys because you're readers. You read. There's a lot of big thoughts in there, and a lot of heavy subjects. You love it. I was actually really impressed because the first time I ever saw this in the library, I did this and didn't really get anything out of it. But actually, when I had to sit down and read it, I got a ton out of it. Would I recommend it to my friends? Not necessarily, because not everybody I know is a reader and they wouldn't appreciate it. But to you guys, I'd say it's a must read. Yeah. Observations. There's a couple cop characters that I could really do without in here. They don't really drive the story. They just kind of add to the misery, but not in a way that drives the story. Yeah, they got to deal with Rorschach at some point. Get it. But they go to like these intermittent crime scenes where horrible things happen because people think the end of the world's coming, and it's weird. Also, just a warning: when you read this, there's going to be sections where they tell tales of the Black Freighter. It was an EC comic. They worked into this, and you really have no idea why until they explain it halfway through. Where it was a pirate comic from I think the 50s, and it was about this person that goes mad and eventually ends up a pirate. It doesn't start off with semantics. He eventually ends up on the ship of the damned because of all these things he ends up doing, and he ruins his own life and like goes into insanity. It was supposed to be I had to do some research to find out why the heck they put this in there. It was like a comment about like the human condition, but it's so heavy and it's so out of left field that you really, until you read the explanation they give you, you're like, why this is not a thing. I don't get it. So yeah, I had to do research, I kind of felt the connection when I was reading it, but I was like, I don't know, like, you could have done that a little differently. But I mean, I am not on the Time Magazine's best 100 books list, so what do I know? All right, fun facts. So I tried to find fun facts about this, and the only fun facts I found were more about the movies. So if you watch the movie, and I'll wrap this up real quick, because I don't want to go to 22 minutes again like I did last time. If you look at all the American flags, they have 51 stars because because Dr. Manhattan helps us win the Vietnam War. That becomes a U.S. state. Also, in the beginning scenes where the Night Owl is knocking a guy out in front of a well-dressed couple, if you look in the background, I guess they set that up so that was supposed to be Bruce Wayne's parents getting saved instead of getting killed. And there's also a picture of Batman in the background like he's a comic, because I guess the idea was to say to them, like, Batman has no place in this world. He doesn't exist here. So, yeah, but once again, solid read. Liked it a lot. Can't recommend it enough. Yeah, read it. All right. Anybody has any questions, you know where to find me. All right. Bye.